Good evening, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation so far. Thank you for the event. So my name is Samet. I'm a Timberlake consultant. I'm professor of finance at the American University of Sharjah as well. So just to say a few words about Timberlake. Timberlake, as you might know, is a provider for different software such as eView, Stata, Envivo, Ghost. So it's distributing these softwares in Europe, several countries in Europe, also in MENA countries. Timberlake offers also several training consulting services in different areas, depending on the request by customers. It could be for public agencies or for private companies. So depending on the demand and requests that could be done by customers. So today's presentation is about Envivo, introduction to Envivo. It's a brief introduction to Envivo, very basic. We will not cover like sophisticated features of Envivo, but still it will introduce the users to what can Envivo do. I hope that you can hear me properly. So please confirm that if you can hear me properly.
I can hear, but Sonia can tell us if
it's perfect. Yes.
Excellent.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sonia, and thank you, Catalina. The agenda for today will be about introduction, first of all, to where can we use Envivo in different fields by different entities. So design framework, importing data into Envivo, what kind of data that we can use under Envivo, setting up Envivo database, and then starting the analysis process and data exploration. I will just have easy example today with actual data, survey data, the way that you can use Envivo and extract some conclusions, some text analysis using the Envivo for very simple database. Okay, Envivo is global, number one globally software for qualitative data analysis. There are several other softwares for quantitative data analysis, but Envivo is one of the best in terms of qualitative data analysis. It can be helping government, commercial companies, academia as well. It can help government to be used by policymakers to analyze data for evidence-based policy development. For instance, it can help government researchers to get an idea about what the public opinion about any new policy that the government is planning to implement, or it can give also the idea about public opinion about some rules and regulations that are already put in place. And then this will help the government to understand the perception of citizens of these regulations, rules, policies, and then it can help the government to fine-tune these policies, change that, improve that if there are any feedback received by citizens in that country. So it's very helpful tool for governments. It's also a helpful tool for commercial or companies. It is used to organize and analyze customer and employee feedback. Let's say, think about a company that whose employees are gonna to post feedback on a website, on social media. So Envivo can take that into account, can come up with conclusions, what employees think, what are the main topics that were, or issues that were raised by employees, what employees like, what employees do not like actually. And then you can, Envivo can help that a lot in terms of analyzing these text, these content actually that was provided by employees or customers in general. And we'll see later on that Envivo can connect different platforms, social medias, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, so it can get the data from these different platforms. Academia, now we see too often the research papers that are using Envivo to analyze the text analysis, content analysis. We see that now in finance, we see that in economics, in psychology, in marketing. So anything that requires text analysis, I can give you a few examples. For instance, in finance, we can look at the financial statement, the disclosed by firms, and we can see whether firms, they take care of the risk that they are facing. So we see, do they mention the risk too often in their financial statements. Nowadays, we talk about ESG. Do firms mention that in their financial statements? How often do they refer to that? So this is what we can use Envivo, and then to extract how often, the frequency of these words in financial statements. So it can do that in an easy way. Marketing, economics, behavioral aspect of consumers could be also detected through Envivo by text, by analyzing the text here, either through the platforms such as Facebook and so on. So where customers, they post some feedback, and then it could be analyzed, and then we can come up with what should be the proper decision in terms of advertising, in terms of improving the perception of these customers, for the perception of the brand for one customer or customers in general. Also, now we use that too often for sentiment measurement. So how do investors feel about the financial market? So this can Envivo can connect to Google, for instance, search for different words and see how often, let's say, market crash, market decrease, interest rate increase, and so on, that they appear, and then we can analyze that to get, or to have an idea about the sentiment of investors right now. So all of that could be done through Envivo. Envivo is helping a lot in terms of saving time by working more efficiently. Envivo can help in terms of quickly organize and retrieve data from different sources, analyzing data, uncover connections that aren't possible manually. Now, if you talk about big data, high volume of input, a lot of resources, a lot of financial reports for companies over time, and several companies. So how can I analyze that manually? It's impossible. And Envivo can take care of it and can provide us with a lot of great output, and it helps us to understand what's going on. Finally, rigorously back up findings with evidence, because we might think that a fact is there, but we can prove that by analyzing the text, by analyzing the content, and we can use Envivo as a tool to do that. Envivo supports a wide range of data. We can get the data. We can import data either from Word document, from PDF, from LinkedIn, from Facebook, from Twitter, from YouTube. Actually, Envivo can treat audio and videos as well, not only text data. So as you can see, bunch of data format that could be used under Envivo, Excel as well, CSV, text file, Outlook, emails. So anything that we need to explore, we need to analyze, could be actually done through Envivo. Envivo, now we have the newest version, which is Envivo 12, but for Envivo 11 I put here, we have 3 different versions: Starter, Pro, and Plus. The Starter is for anyone who is beginner with Envivo. Now Plus, it offers much more flexibility and extra tools as compared to Starter and Pro. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, usually when we have pictures, when we have connections that we can see in a graph, we don't need to talk a lot about it. It shows some evidence. It's easier to convince the reader, to convince the audience that this is the fact, rather than just try to convince it by saying, or by having some argument. Picture, if you can come up with a picture that shows connections through different fields, through different areas, so it's easy. It could be easily done through Envivo. Okay. Manual text analysis. Now, if you'd like to analyze the text manually, so probably we need to underline a few keywords. We need to use different colors, highlight different fields or different ideas with different colors, use stickers probably to say few things or to summarize one idea here and there. But this is if we have long documents. If you have several documents, it's almost impossible to do that manually. Envivo can do that for us by making that more automatic, in an automatic way, much easier way, user-friendly way. Okay. This is a kind of graph that you can come up with through Envivo. So it connects things together. It shows you evidence by graph. So if there is any connection through either attributes or individuals or feedback, so we can easily detect that through Envivo. And the beauty of Envivo, you can dice and slice the data the way that you want. Let's say here we have one person, as you can see, one person, and then this person think different or has different ideas about the environment, about the water quality, about the change in environment, and so on. So we can focus on, we can have that person, which is the focus, and then we can see what this person think about different topics. We can do it the other way around. So we can take one attribute, which is called positive, or environmental change, for instance, we can see what all people they think about. This is typical survey data that could be analyzed through Envivo. So this is the beauty of Envivo. It's flexible in terms of analyzing this data the way that we want. Now, the Endivo process, first, we start by gathering data. So it's important to gather the data, but using any platform, either text or Excel or any platform could be used to gather data. Then once we have the data under that platform, either text, Excel, whatever, emails, for instance, we can import data in Envivo. Then once the data is imported, we can explore and analyze the data, and then we can visualize and share the data with other people or ideas with other people. And then finally, we can publish reports, because once we build these connections, once we understand what people think overall, how often do we have good feedback or bad feedback, what kind of words that customers were using to report their feedback about a brand or a company. So this is what we can publish in a report that could be used later on for decision makers to improve their advertisement strategy, to improve their sales strategy, to improve their services to customers, and so on. This is an example that I try to show you how can we explore the data under Envivo. So here, again, it's qualitative data analysis. So this is a survey that was asked for several people. We have the row ID, where you can see that this is the individual who is answering the survey questions. So when that took place, the age of the respondent, the gender, community, and so on. And then there are few questions that the respondent was answering. The first one was about natural environment in the neighborhood, the water quality also, and then other questions. And then this is typical input that you can provide, that you can use Envivo to provide an output report based on this data, survey data. So once we import the data, as I said, so this is if it's in Excel files, you can easily import it in Envivo. It could be text or any other data that you can see here. We have a bunch of format that you can accommodate in Envivo. Now, once we import it, so we import that. So obviously, there are things that we have to specify in Envivo. The field or each field could be either what we call open-ended or closed-ended question. Now, when we ask about the age is one number. So it's 50, 60, 40, whatever. So it's one number. So this is what we call closed-ended questions. But most of the surveys, they have what you call open-ended questions. So open-ended questions where you provide the feedback. Do you like the product? Do you like the service? And then people or customers will write down a paragraph, probably a sentence or a paragraph. This is actually what we need to analyze to get what's the feedback, overall the feedback of customers in these open-ended questions. So once we codify that in Envivo, we codify that as open-ended questions. And this is what we would like to analyze later on. Okay, so just to summarize, we can use whichever is closed-ended questions to dissect that later on, and then to come up with what people in this category or for that specific category think. What people older than 50 think about the product, what female think, what male think, what let's say the education, if we report the education, what's the level, PhD or master's or bachelor or no education whatsoever. Sorry, what do they think about our product? So we can dissect that the way that we want, okay? we can filter the data based on these, what we call closed-ended questions. So whether gender or age or whatever, okay? So yeah. Now the next step in Envivo, we have to create a node. Now, typical node would look like that. I will show you here. So let's say this is a survey question. Each respondent here, we have the ID of each respondent at the beginning, respondent ID, then the sex of the respondent, then the age, and then there are open-ended questions. So as you can see, natural environment. So what do you think about natural environment? The next question is about water quality. So what we create here, we have to create a node. The node is a question itself. So the question is a node, and then under each node, we have different answers. Each respondent would provide different feedback, right? And this is what we need to explore. We need to analyze. And as actually, this is what the text that falls under each node that later on we would like to analyze. We would like to analyze the content. So what's the word that most likely are used? What the word they are redundant, so they are used several times in that text. So that's what we can analyze using Envivo. So we create nodes for each question. Each question would represent a node. Underneath, we have the text that we would like to analyze, and the text is provided by each respondent. This is quickly, so typical nodes. So we have the water quality, which is a node, and underneath we have all the answers. You can see that, let's say here we have 104 answers. So we have several answers for each of these questions, and this refers to the number of respondents for each of the questions. Okay, we can also flip the way that we create these nodes. We can create the node based on the individual, based on the respondent, and then we analyze how this specific respondent answers the different questions. Okay, so in terms of the water quality, in terms of the change in environment, and so on. So we can do that. We can slice and dice the way that we want. Again, it's Envivo offers high flexibility in terms of that. So yeah, this is what we have here. So we can choose the respondent identity or ID to report the answers. Okay, now creating nodes, as we mentioned here. So we create a node based on the question itself. So as you can see, each question will be forming one node. Underneath, we have all the answers of all the respondents. Now, the beauty of Envivo, then once you specify what are your nodes, what you need to analyze in terms of text, then the next step is to run a query. In other words, to run an analysis. Okay, so running a query, so we have to select any codable item and then run a query. In this case, we would like to run a query regarding the answers provided by all the respondents regarding, let's say, one node, which is the water quality, for instance. So what these people think about the water quality in their neighborhood. Okay, we can search for one word. Let's say if we think that several of the people the respondent, they think that the water quality is bad, we can search for bad, the word bad, or mediocre, for instance, and you can see how often that was repeated in all the answers. So it tells us how often or what's the frequency of this word in all the answers of the survey. Okay. Finally, so what we can do, we can play around these now queries. We can form matrices and different matrices. In other words, we can see what are the feeling about the water quality, not overall, but because we create different variables. We create the gender, for instance, right? So we can come up with the, we can split the answers based on the gender, whether what females they think, what male they think overall. Then we can categorize it by the age as well. So what people who are aged between that and that think about the water quality, and what probably young generation they think about the water quality. So in other words, Envivo offers a lot of flexibility to again dice and slice the data the way that we want, and then we can get the output that we want depending on what we would like to see in terms of conclusions and so on. So this actually we can see as we can just we can split that by gender. We can see what the different gender they think about the water quality. The water quality is one node. We can look at the water quality. We can look at other nodes. So we can do it for one node. We can do it for all the nodes. And again, the nodes refer to the questions.
Anish,
Sorry, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Just to let you know that you have 5 more minutes.
Yes, I'm almost done. Thank you so much, Katerina. Yes. So this is the way that we can present the output through Envivo. It's very helpful in terms of dissecting the data, categorizing the data the way that we want, depending on two things: the field that is closed end, which means that age, gender, and so on, and the open-ended questions where people they can provide their feedback. If you have any questions, if you need any extra information, you have the contact detail on this slide, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions if you might have any questions. Thank you so much for the presentation, for attending the presentation.
Thank you, Anish. You had 5 more minutes, but we now have time for more discussion, which is also very nice. So we have 2 questions on the chat, and I invite our attendees to publish the other questions or curiosities that they have, or to raise their hand and to turn the microphone on. Let's go to the first question by Moha Masani. And the question is, what languages does Envivo support? And can analysis happen with recordings of conversations that involve several languages, specifically African languages, Kiwahili, Ndebele, Zulu, Yoruba, that are often mixed in English speech? And I apologize if I didn't said it right, the languages.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Probably if you need a specific dialect or specific language, so there are other applications for that. So mainly, Envivo mainly supports languages that are well known, such as English or French or Spanish, for instance. So then the words are you can easily like analyze the content accordingly. But if you have a mixture of languages, let's say you have some English but some other languages mixed together, because people they used to mix the languages when they write or when they provide the feedback, then it becomes quite difficult to analyze that unless you specify yourself what are the keywords that you are searching. Because at the end of the day, if you put the keywords, let's say while analyzing the content, let's say I will pick any language, Zulu for instance, and you know that the word good in Zulu is written in that way. So just search for that word, and then you find how often that word appears in the feedback. So this is a way to overcome the fact that you have mixed languages in the feedback. So I hope that they answered the question properly.
Okay, thank you. Other question from José Alberto. Does Envivo have any feature of continuous qualitative analysis over time? Longitudinal qualitative analysis. Could you report any application case?
I mean, definitely you can do that, because the way that you analyze that, I mean, as I said before, so one of your variables could be when that survey or answers or respondent has answered the question. So you can follow the same respondent over time, and you can see the change in the respondent answers over time as well. So yep, you can analyze that, because you can create a node where each respondent is a node, and then you can break it down by when the respondent has provided the answers, and then you can see whether there is any change over time. Let's say you have a survey that was conducted in 2021, and the same survey questions were conducted in 2016 or 2018 or 2019. So what you can do, you can come up with analysis for the 2 years separately, and you can see and you can detect whether there is any change in the answers. I mean, overall feeling about it could be a product, or it could be about any other thing that you are analyzing. Let's say take an easy example. So ask you have a survey where you ask questions about water quality, but you ask the same respondent, you have asked them in 2000, then 2015, then 2020. So you have 3 times. You have 3 different answers, right? So then the way that to structure that, so you create a node. So each respondent would be the node itself. And then you can analyze that for the different time periods. And then you can search how often the word good appears, the word bad appears, the word mediocre appears, and then it will tell you more or less how things have changed over time.
So thank you. And Moha Masani says, it was the first question. He says, thank you, that makes sense. And he presents another question. How do you factor in intent of the respondent versus what they recorded speech text?
I mean, the intent usually is expressed through words, right? I mean, if I'm not sure that I understood the question properly. So if I have the intention, or if I think bad or good about one thing, usually when I write my words, so I will express that intent through the words, right? So this is what we need to analyze. So Endivo is great in terms of analyzing the feeling through different words. Now, if you, let's say, if you have like the word bad in the same answer 3 times, bad quality of water, bad connection of water, and so on. So the word bad means bad feeling, bad service, if you look at companies in general. So we analyze how often these good or bad words appear in the feedback. But I mean, if now the intent is different from what people are writing literally in the survey, then we can never detect that, because I mean, then we have no idea what's the hidden intent that is not expressed through words. But if you look at, let's say, social media, if people are stressed, you feel that through some specific words. How often do they post things? I mean, this is widely used in financial markets. If you have people who are posting every second things, oh, we think that the financial market will go up, then it will go down. Oh, oil price will go up. Oh, oil price will change, and so on and so forth. So if you have too many posts, this could be used to measure the stress or the sentiment of investors. So there are different ways to look at it, yeah. But you have to understand, and we have to trust that what is written represent the intent or intention or the feeling of the person who is answering the question.
Yeah, I was listening to you and looking at the question, and this also reminded me of a paper by Clark and Brown, where they talk about the latent content and explicit content. So I would say that we also need to support our decision on a methodological ground on what do we believe that the data tell us. Yeah, that's very interesting question.
Yep, I fully agree with you, Katarina. Again, this is an extra tool. It's not the unique tool. I mean, we have convictions, we have the theory behind, for sure. I mean, we cannot just give or provide anyone with the access to Facebook comments or feedback, and then this guy has no background in marketing, and we ask this guy to come up with a strategy how to improve or how to increase sales. Do you see my point or not? This is an extra analysis tool or extra tool in the toolbox that will be very helpful to complement what we know, what our conviction, or we are convinced that this is the right thing to do. But this is something extra for sure. It should not be ignored. It's an extra tool, but again, we have to rely on the theory, as you mentioned. We have to rely on what happened in the past. We have to rely on experiences. We have to rely on cases that we know as a matter of fact, and so on.
Yeah, I now would catch your expression. This is a tool, and along our presentations, several presenters were talking about this using KDA. These tools, they are something that help us. But the researcher, I think it was Diamantino who said that at the beginning of the event, the researcher still has a lot of analytical work to do, and the tools, they will help us do the work, but they will not do the work for us. So yeah, definitely.
And that's what exactly the Envivo does. It helps. It's a helping tool, but it doesn't do the work for us. I mean, you have to know the connections through what it will take place. So what's the connection? What's the a logical link between A and B? And then this will help you to analyze what was in the data. So it will let the data speak for you.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, Anis, for such a great presentation, very clear and engaging.